Welcome back to the channel. Let's spill some tea and sip a little drama. You already know what time it is.
Blake Lively wants us to know that she is still in this fight after her major loss today. Give it a rest. Now she's saying she looks forward to testifying at the trial after the dismissal of 10 of 13 claims against Justin Baldoni. After Justin Baldoni's major win today, we are hearing from one of Blake Lively's legal team members. And they say this case has always been and will remain focused on the devastating retaliation and the extraordinary steps the defendants took to destroy Blake Lively's reputation because she stood up for safety on set, and that is the case that is going to trial. Sigrid McCauley, her legal team member, continued, "For Blake Lively, the greatest measure of justice is that people in the playbook behind these coordinated digital attacks have been exposed and are already being held accountable by other women they've targeted. She looks forward to testifying at trial and continuing to shine a light on the vicious form of online retaliation so that it becomes easier to detect and fight." And the claims not thrown out in Lively's case, well, not yet, that is, included those related to harassment, defamation, and conspiracy. And as McCauley concluded her statement, she said, "SH is not going forward, not because the defendants did nothing wrong, but because the court determined Blake Lively was an independent contractor, not an employee." Yeah, sure, whatever helps you sleep at night.
Y'all, Blake Lively is getting dragged online right now. And it all started after that courtroom update.
Here's why the judge threw out 10 of Blake Lively's 13 complaints against Justin Baldoni. First, Lively was classified as an independent contractor, not an employee, which matters because federal workplace protections don't apply. So several of her claims were dismissed. Also went further than that and looked at the actual conduct she described. For example, in one of the intimacy-related allegations, Blake claimed that during a slow dancing scene, Justin pulled her closer than expected, rubbed his nose into her neck, an act she says was not choreographed or previously agreed upon. Judge Lyman responded that Baldoni was acting in the scene and that even if he was improvising, the conduct was not so unreasonable that it would warrant a hostility claim. He also noted that the conduct was directed to Lively's character instead of Lively herself. He also rejected the idea that sexually explicit creative discussions provide a hostile environment. He also says that since some of this conversation happened before she started working, it couldn't have been considered a hostile working environment. This was in response to her harassment claims regarding Justin speaking to her about circumcision. Judges letting the retaliation-related claims stand, but legally, this judge was not convinced that the conduct as presented amounted to actionable sexual harassment.
So quick recap. Blake just took a major legal hit after a judge dismissed 10 out of 13 claims she filed against Justin Baldoni, including harassment and defamation. And ever since that ruling, the internet has been loud.
My relationship with Blake Lively will forever change because of this entire case, be it ends with this lawsuit, it ends with this drama. It's quite clear that Blake Lively really wanted to take Justin Baldoni down. If you really truly believe that he SH'd you and he, really retaliated, then just take it legally. Why go to the New York Times? Why force the entire cast to unfollow you? Why badmouth him to every single person? Blake Lively's lawyer said the following after the case, after the summary judgment was issued yesterday: "This case has always been and will remain focused on the devastating retaliation and extraordinary steps." That's a lie. You guys have been focusing on the SH allegations up until this point, and now you want to say the entire focus was always retaliation and the extraordinary steps the defendant took to destroy Blake Lively's reputation because she stood up for safety on the set, and that is the case that is going to trial. There's one thing to be uncomfortable. I'm sure having Justin Baldoni being the actor and the director was uncomfortable, but doesn't make it sexual harassment. And also, I'm sure Justin Baldoni was trying to fit in with the cast and also try to, make jokes, but doesn't mean it's harassment, right? If the director's telling you that jumpsuit is sexy or you should remove your jacket for the scene, that's not harassment, especially when Sony and the studios wanted this movie to be sexy. It's quite clear as well that Blake Lively and her team really underestimated social media and really underestimated her appeal in the public and TikTok. TikTok is a no BS app, okay? You cannot tell everybody to bring your florals to go watch a DV movie. I think Blake Lively is one of those people who think they can orchestrate their entire reputation, their entire career in a bubble. And you can't do that. Their social media is a big force. You have to incorporate how people view you and how that medium is interacted with.
A lot of people are not on her side this time. Some users are calling this a fat L. Others are straight up accusing her of using her celebrity status to try to silence Baldoni.
A year ago, I made a video about Blake Lively's lawsuit against Justin Baldoni. And I told you she was going to lose. And guess what? A federal judge just proved me right. My name is Michelle Nabati, and aside from always being right, I'm a California employment attorney. So here is what just happened. The judge just issued a 152-page ruling and threw out 10 of 13 of Blake Lively's claims. Her sexual harassment claim, gone. Defamation, gone. Conspiracy, gone. Intentional infliction of emotional distress, also gone. And here's what's so interesting. Her lawyers are obviously trying to spin this as if it were some sort of technicality, saying the harassment claims were only dismissed because Lively was classified as an independent contractor and not an employee. And sure, that's part of it. Title VII and FEHA require an employment relationship, and the court did find that Blake Lively was an independent contractor, but the judge did not stop there. He went even further. He looked at the actual conduct that Blake Lively was complaining about, and he said that it did not support a hostile work environment claim in the context of a film set. The judge specifically said that Justin Baldoni was acting in the scene and that creative artists need space to experiment within the bounds of an agreed upon script without the fear of being held liable for sexual harassment. That is not just a technicality. That is the court saying that the conduct that she described is not what she made it out to be. And this is exactly what I said in my original video. When you read her complaint, it sounds horrifying. But when you actually looked at the evidence, it was very clear that the allegations were very, very exaggerated. And a judge saw right through it. Now, people keep asking me about the retaliation claims that still survive. Now, here's the thing. The retaliation claims are about the alleged smear campaign and not about the sexual harassment. And Justin Baldoni is not even a defendant in any of the remaining claims. The remaining claims are against a production company and the PR firm, I believe. But here's where I have a real problem with all of this. Retaliation requires you to have engaged in some sort of protected activity. That means that you reported or you opposed conduct that you reasonably believed was unlawful. If the underlying harassment was not actionable, the question becomes whether it was reasonable to believe that it was. And when a court looks at your own allegation and says that the conduct that you described does not even support a harassment claim, that may become a problem for the retaliation claims as well. This is why I always tell people, do not exaggerate what happened to you. Because when you inflate your story to make it sound worse than it really is, you destroy your own credibility. A judge and a jury will catch it. And once they stop believing you about one thing, they will stop believing you about everything. That is exactly what I think happened here. Blake Lively made a mountain out of a molehill, and now her case has been gutted 6 weeks before trial.
You've got comments like, yeah, people see through this now. Karma is real. And even, I'm not supporting her projects anymore. Yeah, it's getting brutal. But hold on, it's not one-sided.
Okay, there's only a couple things I'm going to say about this Blake thing and the 10 out of her 13 claims that have gotten tossed. Listen, babe, we all saw this coming. But one thing I do find very interesting and is how Blake is always telling on herself. Now, her lawyer has come out and said, oh, no, this is what we wanted to get to. We wanted to bring this out in court about this smear campaign, whoop-de-woo, right? Because this is what it was really about. Which is interesting because for the last 900 months, all we have been hearing about is how terrible it was and all this harassment that you suffered at the hands of Jamie Heath and Justin Baldoni. But now the sexual harassment is out and you never cared about the sexual harassment. Evidently, it's all about the smear campaign. Right. And that is 100% true. You were just telling on yourself. Even in your attempt to spin a narrative, you are telling on yourself. We know that all you cared about was your online reputation or your reputation in the industry or your reputation amongst the public, like whatever the hell it was. However you saw it, that is what you were concerned with, which is why we are all here now, because you don't know how to take criticism. You don't know how to accept that there are things that you don't know how to do. And there are things that you did a terrible terrible job with, and you heard the feedback from the people and you couldn't take it. So now you concocted this giant story about, oh my gosh, he sexually harassed me and he had to do this because, girl, are you serious? Okay. So now it's not for the people. Now it's not because you care about working conditions for the average worker. Now it's not that you care so much about being a woman in Hollywood and how it's the most difficult thing in the world. Blah blah. Now it's about the smear campaign. Right. Because that's all it ever was about. Girl, if you don't get on.
There's also a group of fans saying, not so fast. Some are arguing those harassment claims were dismissed on a technicality, because she was labeled an independent contractor, not because she was lying. And in Hollywood, she's not standing alone either.
Blake Lively is breaking her silence after the judge gutted her case against Justin Baldoni and tossed out all of her sexual harassment claims. And she's now saying that her case was never about sexual harassment. Like, what are you talking about? Like, that's not what we were fighting for. They were fighting for the retaliation campaign. Like, what? Do you think we just fell out of a coconut tree? It was never about sexual harassment. There would be no retaliation campaign, allegedly, smear campaign, if there was no harassment. And now her rep is saying, oh, the case was never about harassment. So what? It was never about the victims. It was never about fighting for women in the workplace. It was just about your ego because you're more focused on the alleged smear campaign. That's the primary focus for you here. It's wild, the gaslighting and the spin that they're trying to put on this. But yeah, they're like, no, this was never a case about sexual harassment. It was always a case about retaliation. Okay, sure. What about the defamation, the hostile work environment, all the other claims that got tossed out? 10 of her 13 claims got tossed out. The only ones that are still standing are in regards to retaliation, but at this point, they're mostly contract disputes. They're completely insignificant. I'll break it down further on Friday's episode of the podcast in more detail, but her rep is now saying that, like, no, this was never about sexual harassment. And also, like, it's not that there was no evidence. It's that basically that Blake Lively had too much control on the set is essentially what the judge is saying. She had too much control on the set. She wasn't an actual employee. So no, the laws that she was trying to use in her favor don't apply. So yeah, as of right now, things should still be moving to trial with just the retaliation claims, which again have really been reduced to just a contract dispute, saying that that the Wayfair parties, or that It Ends With Us movie didn't abide by their contractual obligation to not retaliate against her. And it's mainly because the judge said, hey, I can't determine whether or not this is or isn't retaliation. The jury will have to determine whether or not these actions are considered retaliation and whether or not the Wayfair parties, or at this point just It Ends With Us movie LLC, whether or not that company violated that contract dispute. So yeah, we'll see. But as of right now, it is still moving forward to trial next month, solely on this contract dispute over this alleged retaliation that a jury will have to now see and determine. So yeah, but thanks, Blake, for telling us that you don't care about victims and you only care about your ego.
Her sisterhood of the Traveling Pants co-stars are publicly backing her, and her agency WME is basically in ride or die mode, saying they fully support her. But let's be real, public opinion? That's where things are shifting. Because now this whole situation is turning into meme culture.
Blake Lively says anything at this point. She spoke out after the judge dismissed the harassment claim, and she said she's doing all of this because she wants a safe working environment for herself and others. Men also need a safe working environment from women like her and Amber Heard. Amber Heard was taking dumps in the bed and then dragging Johnny Depp to court talking about a mega pint.
A mega pint? Yeah.
I am so glad that there are so many women who are defending Justin in this situation. All Blake is doing is taking away power from real victims. They would be more scared to speak out because of people like Blake. Good thing Justin kept all those text messages because nobody would believe him. The retaliation claim is still going to court. Now Blake is saying that the heart of her case is still being argued in court. The fact that Justin retaliated against her lies. I would retaliate against you too if I was him. I don't like liars. liars. You can't get around me lying and just feel comfortable to keep saying or doing what you're doing. I'm sure he retaliated against her, and she might win that claim, but there was no harassment. She just kept lying to get her way. I always say that we need to protect women and punish the liars if there's evidence that they're lying. She lost public opinion. Nobody is really on her side except liars.
Blogs and viral pages are labeling this a loss, and you already know once the internet starts joking, it spreads fast. And here's the thing, this isn't even over yet. There's still a trial set for May, and now it's all about retaliation and breach of contract. Which means, this could turn into a full-blown celebrity courtroom spectacle. So whether you think Blake is being unfairly judged, or you think this just backfired on her completely, one thing is clear, the internet has picked sides. And this next court date? Oh, it's about to be messy.
Trying to gag them, I don't think that's going to go through. How can you try to say you're playing this in the press when the entire reason we got here was because you tried to play this in the press? Like, you went to the New York Times to try to take him down and to set a public narrative, and now that it's backfiring, you want out. But the craziest part of the entire thing is Blake Lively says, like, they met the other day, like the lawyers got onto a call, and she's basically saying that she does not want to sit down for a deposition with Brian Friedman. Like, I know that this girl grew up rich and privileged, but how rich we talking? You know what I'm saying? Because does she think she's like a princess that she can just be like, I don't like your lawyer and I don't want to sit down with him and answer questions and tell the truth. So she's trying to get out of having to sit down and be deposed by Brian Friedman. Like, sweetheart, that's not your option. You don't get to decide who your defense's lawyer is. He picked Brian Friedman. You don't like him because he played your game better than you. Like, you guys went to the New York Times. Oh, nobody could be bigger than the New York Times before you filed your lawsuit, as all of the evidence is indicating, because you wanted to set the public narrative against Justin Baldoni. Now that it's backfiring, you're like, hey, I want people gagged. This is unprofessional to go to the press. Everyone sees right through you and Ryan. Like, oh, we weren't trying to play the public, but we put it in every Deadpool scene and we mocked this man extensively. And but now that the public is onto us and they see how cruel we've been, we would like things to be quiet, and we want a judge to see our side of things. Girl, goodbye. Like, just goodbye. It's like the fakest thing ever. She's now fake Lively, Ryan Reynolds. That's what they're calling them out there. Fake Lively and Ryan Reynolds here, who want to pretend that they were not the bullies, that the public just saw right through them in this circumstance. But anyways, just want to say that we should be celebrating this as a major win, because we were the ones who dug all of this up like psychos, because we have been obsessed with this case. And I think it is just one of these David and Goliath situations. Like I said, like, Justin Baldoni's like my cousin now. He's my kombucha sipping cousin. You know, he had an unexpected wild dragon in me, and he's like the Jon Snow of her Targaryen story. He really never wanted this. He's like, I never wanted